Hello and welcome to the Motoring News Zone, the show where we take you through all the biggest stories in the world of cars right now. This week we explain why the US is tightening its driving laws, the state of Florida is raising the bar for young drivers to get a license, and Wall Street has given its predictions for the Tesla stock price through the rest of 2025. Will they recover or will they go further down the chain? If you're watching on YouTube, skip to the timestamps in the video description to watch the story that you're most interested in. So, without further delay, let's dive in. So it's fair to say that driving laws in the United States right now are being tightened. In Virginia, they have tightened their seatbelt laws, and in a lot of other states as well, they are introducing things called super speeder laws, where if you go over 100 miles an hour, you could end up in jail as a result. Florida and Connecticut, I believe, are the two states that have done that recently, and a lot of other states are, of course, tightening their laws as well. So if you want to drive fast, if you want to drive young as well, if you want to pass and you're a young person now, there are a lot more regulations that are coming in. I just brought you a story about Florida and how they are changing the rules for 15-year-olds to be able to drive. They have to do more tests. Same with older people as well. Older people, they are bringing in more tests to be able to make sure that you're in a fit state to drive if you are 70 years of age or older. But I wanted to go in more depth for this, guys, because it's not just these places that are doing it. There's a lot of others, and it's hard to kind of compile all this information together with it being so widespread. But I've got as much as I can here together for you guys. And I mean, obviously, these things will change. These laws are changing all the time. There are 50 states in the United States, as you very well know, and all of them have different driving laws, every single one of them. And they're all changing. You get several changes to them at least every single year. But what's changing right now? And why are things tightening up? I got the reasons why here on the channel as always, guys. So let's dive in. So most states within the United States have some kind of form of graduated driver's licensing laws, which range from as low as 20 to as high as 70 supervised hours. But still, most states these days are looking to enforce tougher mandates on new drivers in the United States. For example, the states of Florida, Washington, and New Jersey have tightened up their requirements for new drivers this year alone. But some have complained about the consistency of the assessment for these driving tests. That's a separate issue for another video, but I just wanted to mention it here, because it is a big problem according to driving instructors across the US. And one of the reasons why they're bringing in these tougher laws is the fact that motor vehicle accidents are one of the leading causes of fatalities and serious injuries among teenagers, particularly among teenage drivers, not just the passengers. And according to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, when compared to older drivers, teenagers are significantly more at risk of a serious accident behind the wheel. That's something that's mirrored pretty much everywhere in the world, to be honest. However, if you look at the stats historically, things are getting better. While they are one of the leading causes of deaths and serious injuries, these accidents have actually gone down proportionally when you compare them between 2002 and 2021. However, in the last 2 years that we have complete statistics for, in 2022 and 23, these stats have increased, but they've also increased in general for all people. Ever since the pandemic, accidents have, on the whole, gone up. I guess it's people just trying to get used to driving again, but it's something again that we see mirrored throughout the world. But there are some states that are very much lax when it comes to young drivers. For example, Iowa only has 25 mandated supervised hours for learning, Kansas has 20, and believe it or not, Arkansas and Mississippi have 0. But those 3 states I mentioned before, Florida, New Jersey, Washington, what have they done? Well, I've already covered Florida in more in depth, but I'll just quickly mention it here. 15-year-old drivers in the state of Florida now need to complete a 6-hour driver's education course before they can receive a learner's permit. Previously, it was only 4 hours. On top of that as well, teenagers in Florida must also complete 50 hours of supervised driving, including 10 of those hours at night. And the law for that took effect on July 1st of this year. In New Jersey, the state enacted a 50-hour driver's supervision law for drivers under the age of 21. And that brings it more in line with other states such as California, Delaware, Idaho, and Wyoming. Finally, a law that was passed in the state of Washington in May of this year will expand mandatory driver's education to drivers up to the age of 21 by 2030. Which effectively affects all drivers going for a license up to the age of 25 by 2030. So if you're born in the year 2005 or after, this will affect you. But some people have called for the federal government to step in when it comes to this. Like I say, at the moment, these are all state laws. This is not a federal law across the United States. It is not a blanket kind of legislation. It is something that every state has the right to be able to set for themselves. But should it be a national issue? Should it be something that the federal government steps in with? I'll leave that up to you guys to debate in the comments below. So we're in the second half of the year now, guys, which means that we're going to get a lot of financial information when it comes to the first year performance of companies in the United States. Not only that, of course, but their Q2 performance to go alongside their Q1 performance so far in 2025. And there's been a lot of talk about how Tesla are going to perform, what their financials are going to look like, what their stock price, their share price is going to look like at this point of the year, and how it might react, of course, to any kind of information that comes out from Tesla themselves. Wall Street, though, of course, have given their opinions on how the company are going to perform, what they are going to be looking like, not only now, but also in the future as well. So let's have a look at what they've had to say, guys, because it's fair to say it's been a bad 2025 so far for Tesla, but could there potentially be some hope on the horizon? Will this cloud have a silver lining to it? Let's see. So shares of Tesla have absolutely crashed through Q1 2025 after rising steadily and at times very sharply through 2023 and 2024. And in fairness, the stock has performed a little bit better since then in Q2 2025. But like I said, things are far from ideal right now when it comes to Tesla. And things so far have improved in Q2 2025. In fact, over the past 5 days, for example, their stock is up by over 4%. Although, if you look at it as the year to date so far, they are down 14% overall. And if you compare it to their all-time high back in December 2024, they are down nearly 32%. They absolutely crashed towards the end of last year and are still suffering because of that. However, there is some optimism around the business right now, not least because of the Tesla robo-taxis that are currently being tested in Austin. Couple that with the fact that Elon Musk is now seemingly all in when it comes to Tesla rather than working in politics, and it is a positive sign for the company. Although you never can rule out Elon Musk getting involved again in politics, not least, of course, because he's threatened to make his own political party. But which are the key factors when it comes to Tesla's stock performance? Well, there are 3 of them that dictate it more than any others. The first one is kind of an obvious one, the core EV business itself, the actual electric vehicle side of things of Tesla. Tesla do other things aside from electric vehicles, but it is the thing that most people, most casual observers, of course, associate with the brand. Then, of course, it is their FSD, their autonomous driving that they're working on right now when it comes to things like robo-taxis, and, of course, the robotics as well, these actual AI-powered robots that Musk is always talking about. And then the last one, the more controversial one, the political environment. Now, to an extent, Tesla can't control this, really. Now, to an extent, Tesla and Musk can't control this. They did have a bit of control in effect when it came to Musk being involved with the government directly, but those days are very much done. And having programs such as the EV tax refund taken away by President Donald Trump, things like that do not help electric vehicle manufacturers, and of course, Tesla are one of the most prominent ones of them. But what does Wall Street think? What does Wall Street think is going to be happening to Tesla throughout the rest of 2025? Well, it's very hard to predict given the fact that production, market conditions, and EV advancements as well are very hard to predict. Therefore, the estimates for these stock prices vary a lot. Analysts vary their estimates all the way down from $19 a share up to $500 a share. So really, Wall Street is absolutely guessing when it comes to how they are going to be performing. But if we're going to take Goldman Sachs, for example, they too have changed their estimates for Tesla. They have revised it from $315 down to $285, so roughly in the middle of those estimates currently. And the reason why they lowered it was because of their deliveries overall. The amount of vehicles they've been selling has actually fallen 13% year on year to date. But things can turn around very quickly for Tesla. Like I said, their 2024 stock price was absolutely booming. In fact, it was up by around 60% overall, 62.5 to be exact. So overall, it really does depend on your opinion what's going to happen with Tesla, and a lot depends as well with Elon Musk, what he does, whether he sticks to Tesla and stays out of politics or gets himself back involved with politics. I really do think that will affect the stock price of Tesla overall in a negative way like it has done in the past. But if he relatively keeps to himself and focuses on Tesla, then they can recover. They can recover given enough time. But yeah, your thoughts in the comments below are appreciated as always, guys. The regulations around getting a driver's license in the state of Florida are set to change on August 1st. These regulations were initially meant to come in on July 1st, but they have been delayed by a month. But they are going to come in just over a week's time for the start of the new month. So what is changing in the Sunshine State, and how will it affect you if you are in the process of learning to drive and getting your driver's license at the moment? Here's everything you need to know, guys, in this video as always. So this is a new law that comes under this is a new law in Florida that comes under Statute 322.1615, and it was signed by Governor Ron DeSantis as part of Senate Bill 994 in Florida, and it was passed unanimously in the Senate. The new law in Florida states that teenagers who are aged 15 and over must now complete a 50-hour driver education and traffic safety classroom course approved by the Florida Department of Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles. This will also be in addition to the current 4-hour traffic law and substance abuse education that they must also pass, in addition to vision and hearing screenings as well as obtaining parental consent for being able to drive. Furthermore, there are also further restrictions that they must follow once they have learned how to drive as well, such as having a licensed adult over the age of 21 in their car at all times while they are driving, and that they are also only permitted to drive during daylight hours for the first 3 months of driving. And this, of course, comes as driving restrictions in the United States are tightening up as well. Of course, in the state of Florida itself, we have the super speeder law now, something that has also come into place, I believe, in a few other states as too. Was it Connecticut? I did bring you that the other week. But these laws are always changing. I mean, there's 50 states, they all have their own driving laws. And of course, we did bring you news about a federal law that's come in as well when it comes to elderly drivers age 70 and older and what they are having to now do. And there's also a new federal law that has come in as well regarding drivers who are 70 or older in regards to additional tests when it comes to vision, and also potentially additional tests as well when it comes to actual driving prowess. This is on the other scale of things. This is for the youngest of the young. 15 years old is significantly younger than what you will see in most Western countries, I would say. I know in the US it is different, of course, but for example, here in the UK, the youngest that you can learn how to drive is 17. But, you know, different laws for different parts of the world. But guys, what do you think about this law change in the state of Florida? Is this a sensible one? Regarding, of course, additional education and also oversight of a 21-year-old or older driver in the car in addition to the 15-year-old. I want to hear what you have to say in the comments below as always on this issue, guys. Troubled times could be on the way for German sports car manufacturer Porsche. They have admitted that, quote, their business model no longer works. So what are they doing to try and change things? And can they get out of this mess that they are presumably in, or that they will presumably be in very soon? Let's have a look, guys. Full story here on the channel as always. Porsche has delivered a brutal wake-up call to its own workforce and the investors of the company as well. In an internal communication first reported by Bloomberg and later confirmed by Reuters, the CEO of the company, Oliver Bloom, told employees that the company's traditional business model, quote, no longer is sustainable in the current climate. End quote. This sobering admission sets the tone for a forthcoming round of cost-cutting talks, with Porsche now preparing for a serious overhaul of its production structure, spending priorities, and long-term strategy. Labour negotiations are expected to begin later this year, and if the last round of restructuring is anything to go by, the fallout could be substantial. Now, this might seem a big surprise. After all, Porsche's North America division just posted its best ever half-year sales figures for the first half of 2025. Deliveries rose by over 11% year-on-year in North America when compared to the same time 12 months ago. However, that is not the global picture. Overall, so far in 2025, Porsche sales are down by 8% across the world. And most of that is down to plummeting sales in China, where they are down by 42% year on year. Now, a lot of foreign companies, I should say, are really struggling in China right now, particularly EV manufacturers. Now, Porsche, of course, has more than dipped its toe into the EV market, but the domestic market in China really now is starting to thrive and push out any kind of foreign manufacturers. I imagine a similar thing is happening for most of the other German giants like Mercedes-Benz and BMW, as well as Audi and VW over in the People's Republic of China. So it's not something that is exclusive to Porsche, but nonetheless, it is something that's very concerning. Now, when it comes to the profit outlook for the rest of 2025 as well, Porsche has slashed what they expected. Normally, they expect around anywhere between 12 and 15% profit margin, although now they are reportedly expecting anywhere between 6.5% and 8%. Yes, it is still a profit, but it is markedly less than what it was before. Now, why is this? Say it with me. Tariffs. It's not just China, but it's also the United States as well. Any kind of tariffs are going to affect any kind of foreign cars that are imported into the United States. Even if they pass that cost on to the customer, less people will be buying their vehicles as a result of the increased price. They are just basically less attractive because of that, especially compared to vehicles that won't be hit with tariffs quite as severely, like even Japanese cars will be soon, according to reports. They are very close to striking a trade deal with the United States. We can't talk about Porsche struggling without mentioning the Taycan as well. The Taycan, I'm not sure how I meant to pronounce it, but whatever you call it, it is really struggling. The electric vehicle sports car sales figures have been absolutely embarrassing so far in 2025. And this has very much thrown a spanner in the works when it comes to Porsche's aim of selling 80% of their vehicles as electric vehicles over the next 5 years. By 2030, they are predicting that for every 4 electric vehicles they sell, they will only sell 1 internal combustion powered car. Not going off of these sales figures though. So what can they do? Well, if their business model isn't working, they'll have to try and change things, but they've got to be careful if they do that. Jaguar has gone through a massive rebrand, and we're going to see whether that's working or not in around a year's time. My bet personally would be no. Going off of their woke rebrand, I think they may well go broke personally, but that's just my opinion. But what's yours about Porsche, guys? Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. Does their current business model work? Does it need to be adjusted? Are they right to be afraid right now? I want to hear what you have to say as always on this, guys. So we've spoken a lot about the potential trade deal between the United States and Japan. They've been talking about this for months now. They were meant to start talking about this back in June. Now we are near the end of July and nothing yet has been agreed, but it sounds like we might be close to that happening. Of course, the US and Japan do a lot of trade. You think about all the cars that come into the United States from Japan, it is one of their biggest markets, if not even bigger than their domestic market. It's got to be up there at least. It's got to be at least number 2. So with that in mind, Japan is very keen to get a trade deal in the works, just like the US did with the UK a good few months ago now. But what that deal is going to be has not been decided yet. But let's have a look at what is being decided here, guys, and why automakers might not be too happy about it. Here's the full story. President Donald Trump's, quote, massive trade deal with Japan is buoying foreign car makers and alarming American car companies who fear they are now at a disadvantage. Trump imposed a 25% tariff on all foreign auto manufacturers in early April of this year, a duty that also applies to cars made by US companies from parts imported from Mexico and Canada and any other foreign market as well. But now the president is planning to lower the tariffs to just 15% for Japanese car manufacturers and car parts. The White House confirmed on Wednesday that this is the case. And this means that some cars manufactured by US companies could end up facing higher duties than some cars built entirely overseas in the case of Japan. So essentially, automakers in the United States, if they don't manufacture their cars using parts that are made in the US, if they are imported from elsewhere, even if they are assembled, they will face a 25% tariff. But car manufacturers from Japan, if they bring their parts and their cars from abroad from Japan, they only get 15%, so that is why car makers in the US are pretty alarmed at this. The new deal with Japan suggests there is a path forward to lowering the auto duties in general, an issue that has been very troubling to the car market in the United States on the whole. And this all comes as well amid more talks between the likes of the European Union and South Korea, again, 2 big markets for importing cars into the United States. And this all comes as well as there's worrying financials for the likes of Stellantis, one of the big 3 currently in the United States. They reported a $1 billion drop in second quarter profits this time compared to last year in their most recent report for Q2 2025. And they warned the losses could be even larger next quarter in Q3 in an earnings call. Jeep have also said that they will lose around $2.7 billion in the first half of the year, of course being owned by Stellantis. Tesla are really struggling as well. We've spoke about them at length many times here on the channel. You know that they're struggling when it comes to the financials right now, and they're even struggling in the likes of California, as I've brought you very recently in another story I'm recording on the same day. So you should see it on the same day as this one if you haven't already. But is this going to be a big problem for US automakers? Well, if they don't move more of their production in-house effectively to the United States, which to the credit GM and Ford are in the process of doing, then yeah, it could be a big problem because it also affects the parts as well. Even if you are manufacturing in the US, if you're not actually making the raw materials, making the parts effectively in the United States, you'll be tariffed. Now, I would be surprised if they keep the tariffs as high as 25% for Canada and Mexico when Japan gets 15%. That seems a bit extreme, but we'll see what happens with this, guys. I mean, predict the unpredictable when it comes to the government and when it comes to politics. It's very rare that you're not surprised in these matters. But yeah, like, share, comment, subscribe as always, guys. I want to hear what you have to say about this in the comments below. Does Japan deserve this trade deal? Is it too low? Is it too high? I want to hear what you have to say either way. I think everybody will like this law when it comes into effect in October. It's going to be a very popular one in the state of Connecticut over in the US. And I wanted to speak about this because lane hoggers, slow drivers in fast lanes, they are the absolute bane of people's existence when you are trying to get around the country. I think that is something that everybody will agree with. And like I said, the state of Connecticut, they are going to be punishing these slow drivers in the fast lanes very soon. October 1st, this law is coming in. What is this new law and why is it going to be a good idea? I got everything you need to know here on the channel as always, guys. So let's have a look. So new legislation in the state of Connecticut over in the United States has given the Connecticut police the right to ticket drivers if they are staying in the left lane of an interstate highway without passing another vehicle. Again, the fast lane is the passing lane. You should only go in there if you are overtaking a vehicle that is in the middle lane, if it's a 3-lane highway, or on the other side of the road if it's just a 2-lane one. And if they are guilty of so-called left lane camping, they will be issued with a $142 ticket for their trouble. And that is per offence as well. So that can rack up quite easily if you're a repeat offender. Connecticut Senator Christine Cohen described the new law as helping to prevent drivers from impeding the flow of traffic and clarifying expectations of the left lane. Cohen said that the current law, quote, says we shall drive in the right-hand lane, but doesn't say anything specifically about left lane camping. So effectively, it was frowned upon, but it wasn't actually a legal offence to be able to do it. However, on October the 1st, that is going to change. The only exception before, of course, being if it was a 2-lane road. That was an offence. However, if it's 3, 4 or more, it was a bit more of a grey area. However, that has now been clarified. Now, there are exceptions for this. You can go relatively slowly in one of these left lanes under certain circumstances from October 1st. The main one being, of course, if you are turning left off of the road, you need to slow down for that, obviously. So that's fair enough at that point. Also, if there is an obstruction in one of the other lanes, you need to enter the left lane to avoid it, then you should also do that. That's fine. And of course, if you are passing another car that's going even more slowly than what you are, then you're fine. And again, this is just very much going along with the narrative that the US is really tightening its driving laws. We're seeing super speeder laws coming into states like Florida. We're also seeing seatbelt laws being tightened, for lack of a better term, in states like Virginia. And this left lane hogging law, this left lane camping law, I think will be a very popular one. In fact, other states over in the Northeast, such as Massachusetts and New York, also have similar laws already in place. In fact, Arizona wants to bring in laws for this, having a fine of up to $500. However, the Senate reduced it to $200. $500 would be a bit steep, but hey, you break the law, you're going to face the consequences for it. And it's a simple message to the people of Connecticut. Keep right, pass left. That's very much what you need to do when it comes to nations that drive on the right-hand side of the road. And like I said, this is going to be very popular. I mean, lane hoggers, people that go too slowly in the fast lane, that is a real hindrance. It's not only dangerous because, of course, you're going unnecessarily slowly. If you're going underneath the speed limit in a passing lane, that is just downright dangerous in my opinion. Driving very slowly along these kinds of routes, in my opinion, is almost as dangerous as going over the speed limit. Obviously, depends how much over we're talking here and how much under we're talking as well. But I hope you understand my point on that one. Plus, as well, it should help traffic congestion. You know, I do think a big reason for big traffic jams, particularly here in the UK, is when our lorries, our trucks, our big haulage vehicles go into the middle lane. They can't go into the fast lane legally, but when they go into the middle lane, I do think that does hold up a lot of traffic. There's other reasons as well, and people driving other types of vehicles do go very slowly in the middle lane and also the overtaking lane as well, the fast lane, which for us, of course, is the right-hand side of the road rather than the left because we drive on the opposite side. So yeah, I think this is a very positive move. I think that more states should do a similar thing if they've not already done it. We already know about a few that do this, so I can expect this to be a lot more popular and a lot more widespread in the coming years, because what's the downside to it? You know, if you're going too slowly in these lanes, I think you should really be deterred by doing that, and having a ticket offence for doing that, I think that's a good way to do it. But yeah, your thoughts in the comments below, guys. I want to hear what you have to say about this as always. Like, share, comment, subscribe as always. Guys, have a fantastic day here in the world today, and I'll see you very soon.